Okay, my name is Gerald, Lawless, and I'm a partner with the ITIC, International Tourism Investment Corporation, which is running this conference, Invest Tourism, where actually we're trying to bring people together who are interested not only in developing and promoting tourism, but also in the investment side of the whole travel and tourism and hospitality industry.
Great. So why do you think events such as this are so important to the industry?
Well, I think particularly now having come out of COVID, and I think having come out very successfully, to see that travel did not go away, and people really feel that. Well, we kind of believe as well that travel actually is as much a human right. It's something that everybody wants to be able to do. It's inbuilt in our nature. And around the world we've seen the huge surge in demand for travel, which I hope will continue. And I think that is really important for us to be getting people together to understand, well, what is the best way to help travel and tourism to continue in a prosperous way, in a way that we can still recognize our obligations in relation to climate change and in relation to sustainability. And of course that we are actually demonstrating to governments around the world, to activists around the world, that travel and tourism can do an awful lot of good for sustainability, particularly in relation to what it does to drive prosperity into, say, developing communities or communities in developing countries, to see that the people are getting the money directly into their pockets, that villages then can afford a classroom, that eventually you can have schools, that people will be educated, because ultimately education is the key to everything, especially in terms of, well, not just developing countries, but of the whole civilization of the world. And I do think that tourism plays a huge role in facilitating all of this development.
Definitely. And what have the key talking points been, or the key takeaways been so far?
Well, the key takeaway is very much is international cooperation, and what an example the industry is of international cooperation. Because, of course, you can't travel if you don't have visa facilitation, and how that has developed, especially with the World Travel and Tourism Council, have been very active over the last several years in trying to facilitate travel and tourism and to make it as seamless and as easy as possible for people's experiences. And this has been a very good talking point. I think is one of the great achievements of the industry over the years. The other talking point is, as I mentioned earlier, is how do we marry up and how do we equalize and in really demonstrate to the world that our industry can be a force for good, that it can help sustainability, that it can actually, believe it or not, help climate change. And yes, we have our obligations. And one of those obligations, which has been discussed, is for the industry itself to reach out to those who challenge us, who don't agree with what I've just said, and who would prefer if nobody travelled. But you know what? We can prove to them, I believe, that we would be a force for good in that respect. But as well, we have to listen to their legitimate concerns and see what can be done to alleviate any damage that we would do environmentally by travelling.
And in a tumultuous world, do you think it's a challenge keeping things like sustainability on the agenda?
I don't think so, no. I think that absolutely it will be a lot more tumultuous if we don't keep it on the agenda. And it will never go off the agenda, because I like to think, actually, especially coming from the hotel business, it's good housekeeping. If we do things correctly in relation to climate change, if we do things correctly in relation to sustainability, like, for example, and most big companies are doing this now in the hotel sector, is actually reducing the single-use plastic areas. But this could be done much more rapidly, and I believe that we still ignore an awful lot of the opportunities of individually wrapping everything that we see on an aircraft, of small little bottles of shampoo, small little bottles of a hair conditioner. And as I like to say as well, why in washrooms for men do we now get hand lotion? Who needs hand lotion? Come on. So I do think there are a lot of issues and a lot of areas where we can be a lot more effective and dynamic in terms of improving what we do environmentally. I saw the other day a McDonald's truck passed us on the motorway outside London, and on it said, McDonald's, we recycle 100% of our cooking oil to drive these trucks. Well, that's fantastic. And we would do that back in the day when I worked with Jumeirah in the Emirates Towers Hotel, where we actually had a few 100,000 litres of cooking oil recycled every year to be used as fuel. So it can be done. There are lots of initiatives, and I think this needs a cooperation between industry and the governments to legislate to make sure it's done, but also to give incentives to make sure it's done.
Great. And do you have a message for our viewers in the trade?
Well, I'd say in the trade, reach out, know and understand what the issues are in relation to the industry, and particularly the all-pervading issue of climate change and sustainability. Understand where we are a force for good, understand where there are challenges, and do reach out to those who challenge us, and let's connect together to see what we can do for the good of the world.
Some great points there. Thank you very much for talking to us today.
Okay, Safar, thank you very much.